Well, hello again and happy Friday. I'm Barb Jennis, Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut. Welcome to the fourth and sadly final of our Poet Laureates Out Loud virtual readings that have been running off through the month of April. Tonight, my guests are Poet Laureates, or if you prefer, Poets Laureate, they're both correct. Patricia Barone of Clinton, Bill Hayden of Norwalk, Debora Kuan of Wallingford, Chief Michael Peterson of New Britain, and Dr. James Scrimgeour of New Milford. And as in weeks past, I think you'll be really delighted and surprised by the diversity of these voices that you're going to hear here tonight. All five of tonight's poets are members of the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate, the mission of which is to be a resource for communities wishing to appoint their own local poet laureate and to support the efforts of those individuals once they are selected. Now, if you're tuning in from a Connecticut city or town that does not currently have a poet laureate, I hope you'll encourage your town leaders and your local library to contact the coalition for information. And in a few minutes, I'll post that information in the chat section. And speaking of chat, I hope that you will really be very free in your comments as the poets are reading tonight, or also with questions. If you want to wait till about 7:50, we're going to bring everybody back on the screen and we'll have a brief Q&A. So I hope you'll stay until then. And well, since it's National Talk Like Shakespeare Day, brevity is the soul of wit. So let's get on with it, right? Our first poet, Patricia Barone, Pat, better known as Pat, is a landscape painter who has exhibited very extensively in Connecticut galleries, libraries, and other venues. She was a founder of the Clinton Art Gallery in 2014 and is currently also on their board of directors. In 2016, she began the Poetry Place Sunday readings in the gallery. Pat writes with the Connecticut River Poets and participates in their public readings and other events. She is the Poet Laureate of Clinton, Connecticut from 2018 to 2021, where she lives with her husband, Tony, beside the Hammock River and marshes. So let me bring Pat up with us. Hello, Pat, welcome.
Good evening, good evening.
It's so cool that you're also a visual artist. How wonderful.
Yes, I'm kind of like a painter who writes poems.
or a writer who paints poems. No, you knew what I meant.
Okay, well, anyway, I think I better start. Okay.
Okay.
Shall I begin? To celebrate Earth Day, I'm going to read 3 poems about what I call the Zen of geography, about how connected we all are to the places and climates that shape and inform us, not just as individuals, but also create our distinctive cultures. The first poem, Southernmost Point, is about the Florida Keys and Spain. For over 3 decades, I spent some part of every winter in the Keys, only 1 week in Spain, but something seemed to be the same in both of these places. Nothing really obvious at first, but I kept wondering the whole time I was in Spain what it was. And when I came home, I wrote this poem. Southernmost Point. Beyond a circle of light flooding the patio, Margaret Street is dark, quiet, away from the laughter and chatter of people waiting for tables. Only an occasional light on some conch house's slightly sagging porch or from strings of Christmas lights on palms illuminates the jasmine-scented darkness. It isn't exactly duende, not that palpable, visceral knowledge of certain death we have passed through generations in our shared hopes and human longings, the ones that built cathedrals and ancient cities veined with cobbled streets worn smooth by our passing. But the light that casts purple shadows through olive trees scattered on the rocky, sunburnt landscape behind the Mediterranean is the same light here at the equator that glances across the Florida Keys, all hard-edged, defining coral outcrops, soft and dark under tropical palms. There's something in the geography itself this audacious string of islands stretching out to the tip of nowhere, blips on the Atlantic where it meets the Gulf of Mexico, something that we recognize and desire. It's the easy-going, sunny day, blousy, breezy, what the hell of here today and gone tomorrow, spirit of the flamenco. A primordial yes in the face of death's no, drummed out in a frenzy of steel heels on wooden floors. And that is the same spirit that brings us down the overseas highway to paradise poised tenuously at the end of the world. Because there's something seductive in bougainvillea spilling across fences, rioting red and purple over concrete walls and iron gates, something a little sinister about the mangroves reaching up from turquoise bays, greening and growing on sandbars, tangled roots, creating new islands from last year's leaves. There's something in the wind that whispers and gossips through the tips of palm leaves, foretelling what spawns in the womb of warm water off the coast of Africa, the inevitable howling across fragile barrier reefs, erasing whatever human marks we make in sand or stone. And that's it, of course. What makes the yellow rice and black beans, the pulled pork and onions laced with lime juice, the soft bread buttered warm and waiting at El Siboney's, bread fresh from the Cuban bakery on White Street where mornings there's con leche and sugared twists of dough. That's what makes it all enough. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, my second poem, Thin Places, is what the kids would call a woo-woo poem. But for me, it definitely fits into my zen of geography. Several years ago, I did a workshop with my dear friend, a marvelous poet and amazing teacher, Edwina Trentham. She suggested that we write about where we would first go when we died. What would be the landscape of our transition? So here's Thin Places, which I hope I can find here. Okay. Now, in Celtic folklore, thin places and the traditions of many Native American cultures, thin places are where the past, the present, and the future collide, a place where the veil between the material world and the spiritual world is very thin. Thin places. This afternoon at 3:15, the Fire Island ferry, lines tossed to the dock, left the mainland heat without me, headed out across the shallow bay to a narrow channel, navigating from buoy to buoy, until across the horizon, some higher dunes, a church tower at Davis Park, the lighthouse only a dark spot wavering down to the west, appeared. I am already here now, by now, on this barrier reef, narrow strip of sand stretching down the coast for 30 miles between the Great South Bay and the Atlantic, whose storms each year howl the fragile island eastward, opening inlets like wounds. I am to stay for however long it takes, maybe as long as my body's ashes spilled into the river this morning will take to become, well, not stars yet, but part of Queen Anne's lace blooming and budding along the road beside the marsh, or maybe sifted down to where oysters cluster, be part later of some spring osprey's fledgling flight, soaring, circling in a summer sky. This island is the place, of course, I would come to, where, in the still remembered past, I rejoiced in the simplicity of sand, sea, and sky. And now, each day, I'll walk the beach, learning to translate seaweed symbols strewn along tide's edge until everything that needs forgiving heals. Every prayer to be forgiven sent out on the same wind that shapes scrub pines, rustles through the beach roses, heavy with round red seeds, behind the dunes where the deer graze. Each evening, in the kerosene lamp's warm circle of light, the surf's steady heartbeat pulsing through an open window, every act of love I've given or received will be remembered, cherished, and then let go into the unknown darkness outside the lamp's glow until I become light and follow the sandpipers down the long beach, weightless as the fragrance of bayberries rising like incense into an endless summer afternoon, to where land ends in shimmering to slip out through that thin place. And the last poem I'd like to read is just a little sonnet that kind of came to me almost like a gift. You know how some of them do? It appeared in March, just at the same time that the osprey returned and to their summer nest. And this is an event that shore people wait for with far more faith than any groundhog in his shadow. So here's the osprey. The osprey, her platform a dark tear in the thick fog blanket covering the marsh, returned like a promise almost forgotten this morning to validate the opening of crocus and certify to daffodils still hesitant in our north garden that is officially spring along the river. That we are ready or not opening into more light every day, that it's time to unroll our winter souls bound tight by tattered strips of yellowed images moving through our minds like old home movies. Time to wrap them in as much compassion as we can muster and take a chance on blooming. Thank you.
Lovely, Pat. Really, really lovely. You definitely have a painterly sense in your poems too. So,
thank you.
Thank you for reading.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Bill Hayden, who is Norwalk's new poet laureate. Started writing poems in his teens, often reflecting on nature and his love of all things aquatic. His poetry writing ramped up about 10 years ago when he joined the Curley's Poets Workshop in Stamford and presented a new poem each week. He's an acoustic guitarist and a folk music performer-singer, and he and his wife, Brandy, founded and presented almost 30 years of monthly acoustic music concerts at the Good Folk Coffee House in Rowayton, Connecticut, from 1990 until 2019. As Norwalk's Poet Laureate, Bill hosts a twice-monthly poetry workshop at the Norwalk Public Library. So please welcome, let me get Bill here up on the stream. Hi, Bill. Oh, you're on mute. It happens to the best of us. There you go.
Nice to be heard.
I love Norwalk. How long have you been in Norwalk?
Since 1970. So
wow.
That's a few years. I'm almost a native. Working my way there.
Wonderful. Well, take it away. Thank you very much for coming.
Okay. Happy to be with everyone tonight. And I'm just going to kind of rip through a few and try to do them at a reasonably slow pace. This one is titled Contigo. Sir bound, ma'am freed. Their ample, dumb, blind hunger frees and binds. Amid damp tresses climb repairmen magnetized. A pirouette, another, round the spire. He leaps, she leads, their gulps for air combine. A formless fire, suspended, in turgid trembling, down the thousand pathways to grip, lock, and flow. Pledge of love, hide your eyes. Now it's her tide, him undone. Meshed pearls, Contigo. This is a series of haiku based on you'll see what I'm talking about when I get going, a series of paintings I did with some leftover beet juice. Ekphrastic haiku rose. Allowing beet juice to spot, speckle, and flow on 4 blank paper sheets inspired me to grab a tube of matte gel waiting a year to be smeared. Emerged organic trapped forms gesture beyond the two dimensions. Sanguine-like, yet too pale for lost blood. Remember long-lost relations. Reach max impact dry, sheets will absorb so much juice, then freeze for all time. Clock time measures ticks, can't capture energy of playful intention. Each session creates a bond of choosing, artist born again each try. Soul yearns to begin uncharted journey in sight of an unknown rose. And using the same form, haiku, after the violent shooting that took place in El Paso. Some haiku for El Paso for our nation. Hooked on redemption, another man done gone, blown through a tenor sax. A phone call away from the bad news, innocent bystanders shot down. El Paso is not that kind of a community. He wasn't from here. Some people's tombstones are being carved way too soon, holes blown in folks' lives. Blown like that black man's saxophone wail, screeching blues notes to chill one's soul. Ammunition dealt a madman's mission. Can we legislate now, please? Honor innocence sacrificed by violence. Gun control, somehow. Say a prayer. Bells toll for us all. Let loose loving peacemakers in throngs. And while I was on a roll with the semi-political kind of social themes of things of social concern, this one is dedicated in honor of Jacob Blake. It's titled African Taken Down. Resounds the airwaves crash, loss of restraints, every hurting one's launching his own pain, brick on pane of glass, gives no power to resurrect this one who has been taken, African taken down too many times. So now these newscasts whip, a backlash swells to drown the living worthiness of wounds so deeply cut, the fabric may not mend. If ever reparations healing force could garner generations' loyalty, impacting lives that black, nay, gold, matter, more now, that forces that would separate, divide and conquer, that's the chant that rings false through leaders' tweets, dead, old arguments. This one based on the continued forest fires in the West Coast this past late summer and early autumn. It's titled Inner Spaciousness on Earth. Darkened by our West Coast smoking, stars and planets festoon the rhymeless sky. Who's in charge? Where leads this cloud? The darkening debt owed Father Sky, Earth Mother carries a switch, and their children, wind, fire, and rain, come hard, come darker, come often, plot to smash, break this century's record. Renunciation and win-win world-building kinship could turn the page of history, rewrite future planetary evolution, even give the green light to the verdant, pristine real, global Gaiasphere, biodiverse, emergent, natural healing. If enough humans focus intently on their inner consciousness, and by this practice dissolve the grip of their egoic minds, water, air, soul, soil, wheat belts of nations, revered like our native brethren, honored all realms, all beings. Experience a merging with all that is, a universe, well of peace, creativity, beauty, truth, and love. The dolphin, midge, elephant, mouse, eagle, and viper, unmask with grass, sequoia, rose, coral leaf, and sponge, the great design for teeming throngs of thriving life forms that coincides with felt oneness with all creation that's inside everyone, and available to all who adopt this refrain, to evolve human spirit, guided by the light-filled spaciousness of being within us all. And I'll close with one that I have set to music as of, I think it was 2019. No, 2020. No, I guess it was 2019. In the month of April, they had a National Jazz Appreciation Month and National Poetry Month, of course, combined event. And so I resurrected one set of lines I had written many years before and updated it to what I'm writing about today. And I set it to music on guitar and performed it live at that event. It was kind of fun, thanks to Nettie Smith of Norwalk, who was a fellow poet and musician, got me going on it. It's titled Sleepless Freaks. Sleepless freaks, waking before dawn, puts her warm fingers down these cement corridors and reflects the waste and the best of 100 million dying cells inflamed before their time, with not enough sun to be caught feeling. Mindful geeks, pushing the envelope, technical genius, dare program hearts that care. Earthlings join truth seekers and sages in a headlong rush to being real. A dance along rare song lines, in sync with love's fire that blazes in all. Man and womankind seek red-blooded kinship with all creatures here on this earth that we share. Life beats on before us and after. Who's to know what lies beyond our grasp? My God, reveal thy plan so that we all may evolve in peace. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Interesting that you combine with jazz sometimes. I know you'd mentioned you're a folk musician, but that you also work in the jazz area too.
As a folkie on guitar, I play around with some of the complicatedly fingering jazz chords from time to time, but I've never gotten very smooth at it, really. I love the sound of jazz, though.
We had a comment when you were reading about the shooting, and it was what a great way to process feelings on the horrific shooting. So, and I agree, that was a very powerful poem. So thank you very much, and we'll see you back here in a few.
Okay.
Okay, our next poet. Debora Kuan is the author of two poetry collections, Crossing, which was listed as a notable first book by Plowshares magazine, and also Lunch Portraits. She has been awarded a U.S. Fulbright Creative Writing Fellowship, a University of Iowa Writers Workshop Graduate Merit Fellowship, and she subsequently received her MFA from Iowa Writers Workshop, a Breadloaf Writers Conference Work Study Scholarship, and residencies at Yaddo, McDowell, and the Santa Fe Art Institute. Her work has appeared in the New Republic, Boston Review, the Iowa Review, and many other publications. And her poem Magic Lesson will soon be anthologized along with poems by Billy Collins, Lee Young Lee, and Natasha Trethewey, and others in an advanced language and literature anthology. Since 2020, Debbie has served as the Poet Laureate of Wallingford, Connecticut, where she lives with her husband and children. So let me bring Debbie up. Hi. And I also wanted to mention you recently won a very wonderful award, the Three Sisters Award. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Three Sisters Award is an award for poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. They pick a winner in each category. It's awarded by Nell Magazine, which is a not women's magazine, but they feature only women writers, and they are published out of the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Well, congratulations. Very good.
Thank you.
Get out of your way.
Thank you so much, Barb. Thank you so much for this evening. And it's wonderful to meet these other poet laureates from Connecticut and read along with them. So to follow up on a theme that Bill set for us, I will also start with a poem that is in response to the recent shootings in Atlanta of the massage parlor workers, and then in Colorado at a grocery store. This poem is called One Day in America. One day in America. The fog and the rain this morning are tunneling a hole into my heart. I don't say when I return from the grocery store how again, by some ordinary miracle, I made it, didn't die, how I thought about getting shot at and imagined how I'd crouch, a quivering flesh of imbecility, behind the tuber bin, yams rolling past the wheels of my cart. I don't talk about the table of apple rhubarb pies I considered overturning if it came to that, how ready I am to drop to the ground, heavy as a frost-laden door. When will it come to that? One day in America, you will ask me. One day when I drop you off at school and smell your matted hair, always imagining this might be the last time, you will ask me. But today is not that day. Today you are safe at home and your father just fed you, and when you catch sight of me, you practice your wave, opening and closing your fist in the damp air. Your nose and chin and eyes are splattered with dark red berry puree as you kick your feet in your high chair. And of course, I won't say it aloud. I would never say it aloud. What first impression it made as it tore my breath from my throat. This next poem, so in my new manuscript, my third collection, I've written two poems that rhyme and are in a kind of form. I almost always write in free verse, but I thought that I would give it a go with some form and some rhyme and meter. So this one's called Man and Wife. It begins with such resolve, like any morning. Set the kettle, stroke the baby's fine black hair. Peer out the window up the white hill ringing. Greet the sun with praise if it's there. But all day the complaints go on dripping. Stalactites in a midnight blue cave. A sleeve undoing itself, a song unraveling, note by note that cannot be sung or saved. By dinner, we tear our bread with both hands, forget the candles, eat straight from the pan. We ready our sorries on hooks by the nightstands so we can reach them as quick as we can. A little ditty about marriage for those of us out there who are married. This next one is a sort of surrealist retelling of Beauty and the Beast, the fairy tale, obviously. I wrote it after I first showed the Disney movie to my daughter and wondered what she was learning from the story, which, if you think about it, is a pretty dark, twisted story, as many fairy tales are. It's called Beauty and the Beastly. Desire is the flaw of the hungry, and if you are a woman, you cannot be hungry. Instead, you may crimp your bite marks on the gilded bathroom mirror or cinch the linen napkin through its ring to your face, which is where he has built his castle. There, you live with him, just the two of you, only a year of cold sheet between. You are free, yet he keeps you whole, a dimpled bowl of snow interred in an icebox to bring out in summer, to applause, to surround. Yet, what is more implausible, the moat surrounding your new house or the beast a moat surrounding a man. Don't answer. Look there in the mirror. You are learning. A lesson of heat forms a bubble, then pops. A man only need be forgiven. A woman must prove she can even love what kills her. And this next poem is called Notes on a Friendship. It's a prose poem. Notes on a Friendship. There's no word for losing a friendship that's 29 years old. It isn't divorce. It isn't death. It's the constellation of dust columned by sunlight that a cat tries to swat, not knowing that it is everywhere, everything. Now there is an imperfect oracle that permits me occasional glimpses into your apartment. I see the perfectly unused silver saucepan, your bed unmade, a dangle of festive glittered blue cord on a bulletin board. As usual, it looks like the sands of the floors shifted and your furniture went with it, drifting away from the walls. I know some of the faces that keep you company. I don't know the others. Now a year goes by, another. My daughter is 5 and now I have a son. They have never met you. Your unsaid name is a city submerged that no historian is looking into. The rest of the world does not mind. Maybe some pity me because I lost you. Perhaps more pity you because you can also have a child. When I stand at the surface of the sea and look down into the city, there is the strawberry picking, the Russian boy we both wanted, the silver hair dye we used that one night at Oxford, which only made us look gray. Your parents, my parents, their brick porch just 6 blocks away from our brick porch. I see 2 gangly-legged 13-year-olds wearing clothing 2 sizes too big for them, standing in the middle of a suburban street. Behind them, a cathedral of trees, not a single one of them anguished or envious or insufficient. The light falling and falling through them. This poem is called The Night After You Lose Your Job, and it was written this year, and it's sort of in honor of all those people who suffered a job loss this year and all of the working mothers who were really stretched beyond their sanity this year. The night after you lose your job. You know sleep will dart beyond your grasp, its edges crude and merciless. You will clutch at straws, wandering the cold peopled rooms of the internet, desperate for any fix. A vapor of faith, an amply paid gig perhaps, for simply having an earnest heart, or keeping alive the children you successfully bore. Where, you'd like to know, on your resume, do you get to insert their names? Or the diaper rash you lovingly cured with coconut oil? The bath times you indulged in the name of extending their joy? The white lies you mustered about coronavirus, who stole their friends and blighted their playgrounds and was very soon to be vanquished? Where do you get to say you clawed through their night terrors, held them through their sweaty grunting and writhing, half certain a demon had possessed them, and still appeared lucid for a 9 a.m. meeting, washed, combed, and collared, speaking the language of offices? At last, what catches your eye is posted large font and purple. A local mother in search of baby clothes for another mother in need. Immediately, your body is charged, athletic with purpose. gathering diapers, clothes, sleep sacks, packing them tightly in bags. You tie the bags with a ribbon and set them on the porch for tomorrow. Then you stand at the door, chest still thumping wildly, as if you have just won the lottery. And so you have, haven't you? You arrived here at this night in one piece from a lifetime of luck and error with something necessary to give. Thank you so much. I think that's my time. Is Barb there? Should I read more? Oh, okay. I think someone's saying read another. Sorry. Okay. This next one's kind of long. It's called Hot Space, and it's inspired by Freddie Mercury. Hot Space. You pranced past us, above us, belting against your doctor's wishes, dying in real time. Shirtless and giraffe-legged god of rock, your knee unlocking to punch, punch, punch the beat. We were all mothers loving you, Freddie, because we couldn't be lovers. Not after Mary, who ashed your lashes and kissed your teeth, who wrapped you early in faux rabbit fur. I was no exception, 16, contact lensed and fevered in my father's old button-downs and rusty bolo ties. Fridays, I learned acoustic guitar in the emerald carpeted basement of a senior who looked just like you. Mustached, panther black hair, keyboard pulled tight to his abdomen. He floated on the balls of his feet too, light as a braid of fishbone. It's a boys' thing, I used to think, these anthems of football champions, of basketball gyms and horseshoe matches, of rainbow polyblend jerseys and electric stadium rain. Until I saw you for myself, as myself, born Farouk Balsara, an island of urgency, band of one lizard-gilled outsider, high notes bowing the floorboards of heaven. That winter of 1992, my guitar teacher invited me to hear him play the Bohemian Rhapsody guitar solo in our half-hearted auditorium. Too diffident to face forward, yet too cocky to glance my way. No, he didn't choose anyone else. He chose to vanish, only to appear years later, first a biker, then, just as improbably, a Morgan Stanley banker. I barely recognize that hunched, hatted proxy astride a varnished hog. I had been a fool in faith. No brand of worship would bring back the dead. What does it take to will yourself into being, to shed your former self, your ancestry, like a haughty, calcified skin? Generations on a charcoal pyre. For years, I drowned in your tragedy with the disbelief of a mother who could never reach you in the first place. I studied your duck lips, your vaguely foreign gestures, your award-winning baby photo, your elastic boxing stance, only to come away empty. How does one become public yet opaque, seamless yet utterly impossible, a phoenix burning all the way into a snow-crusted sea? By the time I graduated high school, you had already aged 30 years in a matter of 3. It scorched your skin to wear a silk shirt, one foot atrophied beyond recognition. You, immortal prodigal son, feathered prince of planets, a year with an orbit of a cure. Like Icarus, you had chosen Mercury to throw your arms around the sun. But what good did it do you? You stood finally in your Japanese garden, granting one last interview with light. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Debbie, so much. I lost internet right in the middle of your reading, so I'll have to
Okay.
watch the video. But I'm glad you made it through. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Now, how far are you into your third collection now?
It's done. It's done.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's out with publishers right now, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right. So next up, we have Michael Chief Peterson, who marries social consciousness with mellow poetic verses. He declares himself a man dedicated to his family and focused on helping youth. Chief is the playwright of and actor in his one-man show, I Wish Life Had Training Wheels. He is the first ever poet laureate of his hometown, New Britain, Connecticut. He appeared on seasons 4, 5, and 6 of the TV One hit series Lexus's Verses in Flow. Chief was also featured at the Kallio Block Party in Helsinki, Finland, and he performed at the 2012 Olympics in London. Chief is a 3-time Connecticut spoken word Grand Slam champion. So please welcome Michael Chief Peterson. Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes. It's wonderful. Now, you're also a coach, correct?
That I am, yes. Former, actually. I resigned a couple of years ago. My kids were born, but I was coaching basketball and football at New Britain High School for 10 years.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. Big shouts to all the poets who went before me and the ones who will go after. I'm very pleased to be a part of this group. I'd like to begin by introducing you all to where I'm from. And that is New Britain, Connecticut. And where I'm from isn't as bad as people always make it seem. Where I'm from, kids are finding better ways than breaking the laws, smoking and drinking. They're now taking a pause, stopping and thinking, making better choices in life to prepare for their future, because living life as a bum is not something they can get used to. But where I'm from, some bums dress better than teachers and have more faith than our preachers. And since there's no money, their life is now featured around violence and crime, and half of their time is spent begging for dimes. Yes, the coin and the bag, because they'd rather get a drag than a job. But a change is what we need so society can breathe a breath of fresh air by knowing our kids care about going to school, because a man named Kanye West has now made it cool to be a dropout. Mister, them teachers don't like me is a cop-out. Them cops out to get me is an excuse. So excuse me for telling it like it is, but I'm blaming it on the parents, because apparently nothing's being said at home. Too many kids feel alone, yet even where I'm from, if you catch a mother young, there's still time for change. But so many have grown stubborn in their ways. Now their days are spent behind bars. Jailhouse rap stars, bodybuilders, and ballers. And I'm just calling it how I see it, because I've seen it. And as far as you know, I could be it. Where I'm from isn't as bad as people always make it seem. Where I'm from, more kids know how to curse than write cursive. And use words like looked it, heard it, and worse. She told me, Mister, he looked it good, but his girlfriend was the worstest. It hurt in my eyes looking at her. And where I'm from, most people do laugh. And no one wants to correct her. They just choose to neglect her, which is nothing new, because so many men have already done it before. Her mother's ex-boyfriend, her father, her own ex-boyfriend, a father. Her sister's soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, a father of 3 and 2 on the way, and it's so sad to say that so many men in this world have abandoned little girls, or little boys for that matter. Whatever happened to daddy's little girl? Because in this world, yes, even where I'm from, I've noticed a pattern with men leaving their young, so the saying fits perfect, like father, like son, because they weren't taught any better. But they learned how to measure because they learned it in the hood. But it's all good, because school's for the birds, so they got high off that herb and hope Miss Clark grade with a curve so they could be the first to pass and graduate. Where I'm from, they're always a tad too late. Where I'm from, if it ain't one thing, then it's another. True story. My 13-year-old student got caught smoking weed with her brother. Come to find out, she's pregnant and so is her mother. And what bothers her is neither one knows who the father is. Around my way, same old story, just a different day. So I tell you like I tell my students, listen closely while I school you. Don't let my shirt and tie fool you because I'm from where you're from. I've done what you've done and seen what you've seen. And I was once in between a rock and a hard place just like you. Yeah. My father left me too. I've seen my brother die. Watched my mother cry and been too afraid to try. I've seen my grandmother slap 5 uncles, all of them on crack. I've seen a mother beat up by her daughter. And some honest to God truth, you guys. A very, very long time ago, my great-great-grandfather was murdered over a quarter. And yes, I received help from the state, and damn what y'all say, those food stamps were great. And yes, I've heated my house with the oven and drank Kool-Aid from a jelly jar. The city bus was once my car, but I've overcome adversity, and they can't stop me. I can't lose because I choose not to, and if you need help, I got you. We can make it to the top together and then scream. Where I'm from isn't as bad as people always make it seem. Remember, they can take away your dollars, but they can't take away your dreams. Remember, where you're from isn't as bad as people always make it seem. I'd also like to walk into a second piece wrapped around some of the hardship that I've been through, but tells a story of my life and my baby girl. There's a 7-year-old crying over a man she's never met, as if they've held hands in an afterlife before her life even began. She remembers his birthday and asked to go see him. I watched her trace the letters of her name in his headstone. Mia, Julian. She is his namesake. Tears flow down my daughter's face, and I give her the stiffest embrace I can muster. And right before we leave, she mantles her arms around this marble structure, giving it the most solid of hugs. This is the way she has learned to love. I come from a long line of men whose first love letter was a eulogy. From the era of stop crying before I give you something to cry about. From pick your head up and poke your chest out even when you're scared. From boy, you better man up. Black men have always been taught to be tough. Can't never let them see you sweat or cry. We were taught to hide the heavy, taught to be tough, hard, both inside and out, taught to never let what's inside out or vice versa. Stand firm, be statue. Sometimes that makes us hard to love. But when you're raised by a rolling stone in a concrete jungle, you got no choice but to be rocked. The block was our home. No doorbell, just hard knocks, and it was hard not having a father. But my mother was a brick house. You see, I inherited the cement in my veins, me and my brother. And the more rocks change, the more they stay the same. Hard. Us bricks don't fall far from the building. He was every bit of Twin Tower turned rubble. Every bit of hard head makes soft behind. He was every bit of hard hat, private first class. Couldn't tell him he wasn't part adamantine. Not quite Wolverine, but an X-Man now. Couldn't withstand a storm of bullets to his chest. He was every bit of hard, just not Kevlar. Do you know how solid you have to be pillar and pallbearer? To have to lift him up only to let him down and still be foundation for family and still, be stable, be structure. Can't let them see these cracks. Growing up tightrope in the fault lines of an earthquake, we prepare ourselves for the fall. It's bound to happen. So we grow to be hard. Most times, hard to love. And when you have brick in your bloodstream, you can't expect it not to affect your seeds. My baby girl got gravel in her genes, but I don't want her yellow brick road paved in pain. So I placed her between a heart and a hard place so she learns to love hard things and be just the kind of heart I need her to be. A gem. She's beautiful and shining, and when you put enough pressure on a rock, you make a diamond. And she's constantly reminding me of how black women, regardless of a situation, have always been able to love us. Hard. I've used to avoid letting her see my scars and my tears. I was taught to be tough, be strong, protect and provide. And have you ever seen a rock cry? Then why would I show my daughter that? To her, I am every bit of mountain, and she loves me for all that I am. And I make sure she understands that contrary to what she hears, bricks and stones won't break your bones. They will love you, hug you, squeeze you, and raise you to be a diamond. And it's fine if you princess cut into your feelings and learn to love hard things on Sundays. We go see her Uncle Julian. I watch her trace the letters of her name in his headstone. Right before we leave, she mantles her arms around this marble structure, giving it the most solid of hugs. Between her father, her rock, and her uncle, the tombstone, this is how she has learned to love. Hard. I'll share one more with you from the Connecticut Poets Laureate anthology, Waking Up to the Earth, Connecticut Poets in a Time of Global Climate Crisis. Poets prior to me have referenced the recent incidents happening in our country, and this is a piece that I created around that. It's called The Talk. Son, it's time we talked about the birds and the bees. First, I need you to believe that you too can fly. You must protect your wings from some bees because they sting. There's many dangerous animals outside of our nest that invade our trees because their branch is bigger than ours. So what do you do when animals attack? No sudden movements. They may not understand you when you speak, but they know what fear looks like, and that invites them closer. So close your mouth and open your eyes. See if you can tell what hives these bees come from. Not all of them sting. But I'm guessing they've seen your wings, and they know you can fly and sing, and they can only fly and bust, so they try and bust your shell before you fully hatch. This concrete jungle is full of traps. There's many snakes that hide in the street. There's many snakes in the street that hide in plain sight, that invite us to trust and believe in them, but they're bluffing. They're chameleons. They never show their true colors, but attack you because of yours. So I must teach you to defend yourself. Your tone of voice can resolve problems caused by your tone of skin. It's your words that will spare you. Some animals lack the integrity to interact with the intelligence, so they use intimidation to scare you, but you will stand firm. You will be smart enough to know that sometimes the early bird loses his worm to the bully, but you will take no bull and learn to claw your way out the pits. It's a dog-eat-dog world where uniformed canines are ready to sink their teeth into your dreams, but they only attack if you threaten their pride. Hives. No, you do not have 9 lives. You're just viewed as the black cat with bad luck. And what sucks is if you ever get bit, they can just weasel their way out of it. But back to these bees. They earn their stripes by putting you in them. Some see black and white instead of wrong and right. And if you type, "Why do bees attack?" into the worldwide spider web, it says, and I quote, "Experience has shown bees tend to attack dark things." Now that stings. But I guess it just is what it is. Where we're from, we learn to dance with wolves and we hide from pigs. So what do you do when animals attack? You stand your ground. Spread your wings slowly. Speak softly. Tell them you are still learning to fly, and that you only fight with your words, not your fists. But you've seen this happen to too many of your flock, and that with you it may not stop, but one day it will end. And if you should die today, then God will mend your wings in heaven. I told you in the beginning, you must believe that you too can fly. So remind these buzzards that once they sting you, the bee instantly begins to die too. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful work. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to, in the chat, post the name of that anthology. I've attended several readings. Have you done the readings for the anthology as well?
Yes, one prior.
Yeah, great stuff. So please, people who are watching, I'm going to put it in the chat, and please get your own copy because it's just loaded with wonderful poetry. So.
It is.
Wow, powerful, powerful work. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So, last but certainly not least, Dr. James Scrimgeour, Professor Emeritus at Western Connecticut State University, our beloved WestCon. Jim has published a critical biography of Sean O'Casey and 10 books of poetry. His most recent book, Voices of Dogtown, Poems Arising Out of a Ghost Town Landscape, was listed as a must-read by the Massachusetts Center for the Book. Jim has participated in National Endowment for the Humanities seminars on modern poetry at NYU and Princeton, and recently served on panels at the Massachusetts Poetry Festival. Now the Poet Laureate of New Milford, Connecticut, Jim was one of 5 Connecticut poets featured on a CBS poetry blog. So we welcome, where are you, Jim? There you are. Welcome.
Glad to be part of this.
Isn't it an amazing night? Such a wonderful diversity. That's why I've been loving this whole series, because we see so many different voices. So So thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm going to be reading 8 poems, 4 poems from 5 years ago, before COVID, when I used to go to the Rockport, Massachusetts to spend the summers and rent a condo right next to a state park. And so the first 4 poems are going to be about that period of my life, and the last 4 poems are going to be poems about living here in Coronaville. Okay, here goes. The first 4 poems. Heading out. We're all packed, all ready to go to the ocean, the state park we visit every summer. When we look up at the right moment, wow, the incredible bright sunlit leaves of the neighbor's tree, the special lemon lime color of spring fills and fulfills our vision. We can see nothing else, not the thin, dark, branching limbs, nor the bright blue, the perfect blue background. We have not yet seen the photo. We see only the tree turned on, the miracle of life exploding in small leaf-sized bursts. Hard to imagine, we think, climbing into our car. Hard to imagine anything more beautiful than this. Would be nice if we could pack it in our trunk, if we could keep this small piece of spring within us forever, no matter when or where we go. And then after I got to the state park, this is one of the first things I saw. Lilac tree in mid-May, just starting to bloom. Over 200 purple cones, each one pot bud, pot blossom. The whole tree nodding in the slight breeze, exuding aroma. The top branches nodding more firmly for emphasis. The blooms saying, hello, world. Hello, poet, sitting so still on the picnic bench, breathing in and breathing out. Blooms and poet saying in unison, yes, yes, yes. Another Halibut Point poem. Windy day at Halibut Point State Park. Hayden, my grandson, who has been celebrating his 21st birthday every day for the last 2 weeks, and his friend Connor are sitting on a granite block at the edge of the quarry. Specks of sunlight race so quickly from the far ledge to them, and to Chrissy and me, here 20 feet, 50 or so years above their music, from guitar and accordion. Music that filters through the nodding juniper, the spring green leaves of the young birch growing so improbably out of a crack in the granite. The branches of sumac in which reddish brown cones are just beginning to appear. The wild blueberry bushes by my left elbow waving in the breeze, showing off all their new white fruit. Chrissy moves closer. Go on, write your poem and hold my hand, she says, as she kisses me on the lips. I feel. Can you feel the whole scene quivering with all the possibilities of spring? And the last Halibut Shore poem I'm going to read is called Cardiac Dementia and the Tree. The tree, the one with 4 limbs twisting, sprouting so randomly, so unpredictably from the single base. The tree before which, a mere 3 years ago, my friend Peter sat gazing, writing a poem. A pretty good poem, which I helped transcribe into his computer. And I think of Peter the next year sitting before the tree, looking at me with a blank face when I ask him about the poem. And today, me gazing at the same tree, thinking of the specialist. Cardiac dementia, not Alzheimer's, he said. He doesn't fit into our study. It's irreversible. There's nothing we can do for him. So each year he remembers less and less. And yet I think, so what? He really doesn't need to remember. He lived it. I've still got the poem, and you've got this one. Okay, now jump forward 5 years, and these are next 4 poems are series I've been writing about Coronaville. Walking in the neighborhood, looking at the cute, cuddly crowd creatures drifting across clear blue sky, above the lime green willow tresses weaving in the spring breeze. Only the lack of cars and the lack of people remind us that we are sheltering our 80-year-old bodies in place, not that far from an epicenter of the coronavirus. Such a beautiful spring day. Such a contrast between the surface beauty of the natural world and the danger lying unseen inside and on top of it. The last time we had this clear a view of heaven, it was 9/11. Next poem. On the bench. On the bench, a 50th anniversary present from our kids. And under the diseased dogwood on our front lawn, the leaves with veins branching in roughly parallel arcs from the thick center stem. The leaves with their pinpricks of small brown spots jiggling in the June breeze. The green leaves with all the insect-eaten holes in them, right there, less than a foot from my face. But the leaves, the healthy part of the leaves themselves, so bright, so green in the sun. As green, I imagine, as the leaves in Eden. No disease, no climate change, no virus, not all the sins of mankind can lessen that effect. And next one called Just a Whiff of Lilacs. Just a whiff of lilacs from the bush where the purple cones have turned mostly brown. The bush we have been passing on our walk for the past week or so. Just a whiff, but enough to trigger the memory, to set off the explosion, the shock I felt 5 years ago on the picnic bench in front of the whole blooming tree, like the shock I feel now. Just a whiff, but enough to retrieve the past as new, as the light purple, as bright, the aroma as intense as it ever was, as intense as it always will be. And then the last poem I'm going to share is when you're living here in Coronaville, one of the things you do is you begin to look for company. And I started talking to the trees, and they started talking back to me, this one crabapple tree especially. And I call this the 13th poem written in the voice of the tree. So what if my aged trunk is gnarled and twisted into a question mark, and the neighboring maple with its over 20,000 sunlight-stealing leaves towers above me? So I list a tad to the left to get what sun I can, but it's not the same. It's only June, and the sun I do get turns so many of my leaves yellow and brown. And a few of my arthritic branches have lost all their leaves entirely. It's been years since I had more than a few apples to share with the deer I loved, still love, the one who nuzzles her soft fur up against my lower branches as she eats her fill. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
So, a crabapple?
Crabapple tree.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I'm going to bring everybody back up again. And I'm hoping if anyone would like to ask specific questions of a poet or to the poets as a whole, please post them in the comment section now. But meanwhile, before we get any, by the way, I want all the poets, if you have a chance, to go back in to the broadcast and see the wonderful comments that have been coming up while you've been reading, which I know you can't see while you're in the broadcast studio, but some wonderful comments coming in. So I want to thank you all. This has been an incredible evening as a crown to 4 very incredible readings. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves. And I wish you all really, really wonderful success with your work, and keep the passion alive. So.
Yeah. And thanks again, Barbara, for organizing this. You really deserve a little hand of applause.
Absolutely.
It was a labor of love. You guys, it's all your work that has made
Thank
it
you so
possible.
much, Barb. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Barbara.
So viewers, thank you for watching. Also, if you've missed any of the previous broadcasts, they're available in the same YouTube channel where this one will appear. If you click back on this link after the broadcast ends, you can watch it again, which I'm going to do because I missed a big chunk of it when my internet died. But thank you for being with us. Happy National Poetry Month. Happy Shakespeare birthday, death day, and Talk Like Shakespeare Day. And we wish you all well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye-bye.